Hello, and once again, we are live with the Modern Mystery School UK and EU podcast and YouTube channel. And today we are joined by the lovely Whitney. Whitney, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Kate, for having me on today.
Well, again, I am very excited because I am really interested to hear about your experience of the life activation. Because just to give the viewers a little bit of background, you have a master's in psychology,
I
which
do,
is
yeah.
all a little bit about the brain and and why things work. So I am intrigued to know why you would want to have a life activation in the first place. And
Mhm.
then, what did you experience? Did you experience anything or what happened?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So I I would want to have a life activation as a therapist. I work with your mind, I work with your emotions, which we need help and support with. And life activation is doing so much more than that because in only our mind, we reach a limit to how much we can expand and grow. And actually, I see people kind of cycle through the same patterns over and over again without actually making a breakthrough. And it feels good to emote and express and have that understanding. But if you're not actually moving forward, you just keep hitting limit after limit. And so life activation brings in a much bigger energy. It connects us to our soul and our fulfillment. You know, even people getting treatment for depression and anxiety are gonna, if they don't connect to their soul, it's really, really hard to treat. And they still will find that lack of fulfillment. Um, so yeah, and then, why would, how I felt after I got life activated. Um, I felt like I just jumped up a vibration. It was hard for me to describe, but I felt joyful. I felt happy. I remember I went out with a good friend after that, and it was just so much flow and light moving through me. I couldn't even mentally understand what had just happened.
It's so interesting that you said that. And, some, people out there probably don't have any idea that this type of thing can actually help. They probably, that maybe just think, oh, I just need to talk about my emotions or talk about this or
Right.
talk about that. So that, that description I feel is really helpful, that it can sometimes cycle and what we might need is just to connect to the soul in this way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And our DNA of which holds our spiritual gifts, our talents. Our physical DNA is connecting us to our, what we look like and how our physiology works. And if we don't connect to our spiritual DNA, it can be very hard to connect to our soul, our spirit, our purpose, and our gifts. And that is really what brings joy.
Yeah, 100%. So you felt this flow such like after the life
Mhm.
activation. Did it
Mhm.
then just stop working, or would you say that you notice that it keeps on working with you or not, or how does that work?
Yeah, I found it was so I had studied other energy work before. I found the Modern Mystery School and I did life activation. And I felt a knowing that it was meant for me. I didn't know what was next, but I do feel it was a propeller. It moved me forward. It helped me to then connect to these new possibilities that I hadn't been aware of before. So after life activation, I chose to get initiated as an adept. And that's what really helped serve me with tools to continue to build and maintain that light in my life. The life activation alone is 100% wonderful. And in order to really be able to contain that energy and build it more in my life, the adept initiation was essential for me.
I 100% agree. I mean, it's just phenomenal, and we're actually going to,
Yeah.
talk about that in depth in future programs, and we'll get you back on to share about that because it's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Now, do you think that the life activation, because you work with lots of different people, uh,
Yep.
all walks of life, do you think that the life activation is more suitable for a certain type of person, or perhaps somebody shouldn't get the life activation, or do you think that only certain people should get the life activation? How do you feel about that?
I think that's a great question. Someone asked me that yesterday, actually. And so the range of my clients, the youngest client I've ever worked with is 17 years old. And then the oldest client, he was a 17-year-old boy. And then the oldest client I ever had is 77 years old. So a huge range of people can benefit from this. I've worked with other psychologists. I've worked with people who are coaches. I've worked with people who are gosh, lawyers, so it's a huge range. I've worked with people who, work in construction. It's a huge range of people can benefit from this.
So you don't necessarily have to believe in it for it to work, would you say?
No, I like it when clients are excited, when clients are kind of bought in. But I do have people that are more skeptical and they're like, well, okay, I'll just try it. I don't know. I've never done it before. And that's actually the most exciting when someone is skeptical and comes in and they're like, wow, I really felt that. I've had other healings before, but there was a certain kind of juice in that session that I've never experienced before. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
so fun. I always, sometimes when I chat to those type of clients, they go, well, nothing's happened at all. And I say, okay, so what's been going on in your life the last 2 months? And they'll say, well, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. I said, so nothing's changed then.
Right.
You know, okay then. And then they kind of look and go, oh yes, I hadn't realized,
Right.
because it is a little bit like that sometimes, isn't it? It's quite subtle in it's quite subtle. And then all of a sudden you look back and actually, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
I've done so much.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love
Yeah. And when we can't understand something with our mind, sometimes it's harder to make those connections. But then if we drop into our hearts and just recognize, oh wow, I did that thing, and then over these last couple months, all these different things happen. There's a direct connection.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I was going to ask about, you did mention, at the beginning, I think, what about people, that are suffering with, maybe anxiety, depression, those types of things?
Mhm.
Um, it seems to be more and more people nowadays
Yeah.
struggling with these types of things. I mean, obviously we can never make any promises. That's not, but
Certainly.
from your experience and what you've seen, do you feel that the life activation can assist in any way?
Absolutely. I have one client, he did have depression, and after the life activation, he felt a big burden lifted from him. It was continual work after that to really make a lasting effect, but there is an immediate relief that I find with people. And then I also find with life activation with anxiety, it's very soothing, and people feel that with it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Our time is almost up. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience. And is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Gosh, just thank you for the opportunity. I think life activation is one of those things can be hard to describe, but like, if someone describes to you an apple, you're not going to know what it actually tastes like unless you try it. And so I would encourage everyone, just try it. The worst thing that could happen is that you have a story about going to see someone who used a crystal wand and you held some crystals in your hand and maybe, get to laugh about it, which also is joyful. So yeah, there's only up from there.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I think, that there's nothing to lose. It's a win-win having a life activation. And, if you're out there and you're curious in any way, we can connect you with a practitioner. We
Mhm.
people in over 55 countries, so we'll be able to find you somebody. Uh,
Absolutely.
kind of close to you. And thank you, Whitney. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely get you back on the show to discuss initiation and some
Perfect.
other facets.
Perfect.
Okay.
I would love that. Thank you again.
Yeah, our pleasure. Our pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you again soon. Take care for now.